Hey everybody, and welcome. In today's video, we're going to see how we can model a type of modular furniture. Now, what do I mean when I say modular furniture? Basically, it's furniture that looks something like this. So as you might see, you have a lot of similar pieces. This one is more or less what I'm going to be trying to achieve. But there you go, you have something similar here and something similar here. Now, the idea behind making this video is not just to make something like this, but rather make it so it's very customizable and easy to tweak around, and also see what's the easiest way to achieve this. So I'm going to move this to the side, and let's dive in and try to make the base for this thing. The first thing that I want to do here is I'm going to try and create just a simple box. There you go, something like this. At the moment the size is really not important, as I'm not following anything strictly down to size. So on my other screen I have this. So I'm going to try to get something similar to this, but keep it more organic, and you'll see why. Alright, so first things first, I want to get me a base. So that means I'm going to hit my edit poly and add in a few connects across like this. Let's put in a few connects here. Well, I'm going to go with just two, so it's going to be easier to do the changes, so I won't have to move a lot of vertices. All right, like this. So basically what I have here is just a box with some edges going across it. Now what I want to do here is I'm going to try and shape this into something that I would like to have these rings to follow. Now let's try and just give this thing a bit of depth here. So just move these guys downwards. Don't worry, because we still don't have a lot of the geometry that you see there, and it's more or less just a blocky look. For now, I'm just gonna try and get this to be in the place that I want it to be. Something like this. And deselect both of these, move this downwards, maybe like that. Just make sure we have just the top one selected like this. Now, just so I make it a tad bit more interesting, I'm going to select a couple of these guys from here and select these guys from there. Like I said, again, you really don't have to do this the same way that I'm doing. I'm just doing this basically so I can get a shape. All right, I'm happy with that one. So move this upwards. And honestly, if you even make a more rounded or organic look, you're probably gonna end up with a more interesting result. But that would require a bit more time. So I'm gonna select just these guys, stretch them out like that. Select a few more of these. Make sure we don't have anything else selected, like these guys there. Awesome. Pull them out like that. All right, awesome. I'm just gonna put on an extra turbo smooth on top of this thing. Give it a few iterations just so it has a lot of places where it can take its shape from, and something like this. Now, I can go in below it on the edit poly, and from here, if I turn on the show cage, I can actually see the underlying cage. And when I move all of these vertices, the underlying geometry is going to follow, which is going to give me a better look as to what I can expect. And there we go. And it's starting to look like something like a cozy bed or something like that. So select these guys, move it outwards like that. And yep, I think I can actually work with something like this. It's not very, very close to this. It's not the same idea or the same design, but as it is, I still have something that can pass for chair. Now, the second part that we want to do here is take what we just created, and from it we want to extract some geometry so we can use that set geometry for these bars. So put this to the side and put an edit poly on top of the turbo smooth. The easiest way to get that set geometry would be to use one of the options that we have here, which is slice plane. So what I have to do is, while I'm in my edit poly, I just click on edge and I have this option slice plane. Once you click it, you're going to get this plane at the bottom. Now I'm going to hold on with A selected so I can have my angle snap toggle. I'm going to rotate this at 90 degrees like so. Move this up to the front, and you're going to notice that I have this line going across. Basically, wherever this yellow plane is intersecting with my model, I have that line. And if I click this piece over here, slice, it's actually going to slice that entire line. So if I move this backwards, now since again I'm not going to be trying to follow this very, very strictly, I'm just going to move this manually, but if you want to retain the same distance between one and other of these edges, you can just right click on the selected move, and now since I'm moving this on the y-axis, I can just give click on slice, then move this for, well, I guess this is about 10 centimeters. So Y 10 centimeters, moves it upwards, slice again, Y 10 centimeters, slice, and you get the idea. You just do the same thing at 10 centimeters interval. But for me, I'm just going to go and manually move this until I get the needed edges. Well, actually, I'm going to stop the video here, or pause it, and I'll be back as soon as this thing is done, so you don't have to watch me do the same thing all over and over. And there we go. All right, awesome. I'm going to deselect my slice plane, and now with the edge selected, I still have all of these edges that I just cut in selected. So what I want to do here is go down to create shape in the settings and make a smooth shape. I can either make a linear, but in this case, since it's a very organic shape, I'm going to choose smooth and click OK. Once you do that, what you're going to notice is that now I can select these lines over here and move them to the side like so. All right, so we have something that is slowly starting to look like what we want to have or achieve over here. And in all honesty, if I'm going after an effect like this, which is basically just a bar, nothing else, just an empty bar, what we can do here is go into the rendering, enable in rendering viewport. Now from here, instead of using a radial, we can use a rectangular look. Make sure we have the length and the width to something that we're gonna like as such. There we go. And we get a very similar result like we saw on the image. We can even give it a bit more interpolations or lesser it, so we have less geometry on the edges. But in this case, I'm gonna actually turn off enable rendering viewport, and we're gonna try and look at this as if this was made out of wood. Now I know there are certain elements of furniture that are made from planks like these, and then those planks are interconnected with either a metal rod or a wooden rod. So instead of just using the enable and render in viewport, we're going to see how we can use this entire thing and make it so it looks like it's made out of wood. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do here is select my edge like that. So I have my selection spline selected. So just selected the last one over here, and I'm going to go and detach. So let's just find it. Okay. Detach. Click OK. Detach. Okay. So basically, I'm gonna go and individually detach all of these splines. And again, I'm gonna pause the video while I do the rest of them, because it's really just gonna be me selecting a line, hitting detach, and clicking OK. Alright, and now that I've actually detached all of these as separate splines, what I'm gonna do is select all of them. Now hold down Shift and drag them outwards like this. So I have up until every of these lines, I have one that's right next to it. Now, the distance that I'm going to draw those lines is basically the distance as which I would like to have the width of my planks. So now, again, I'm actually going to have to go and select all of these lines like so, and attach it to the one that's right next to it. Just make sure that when you're attaching these together, go from back to the front, or if you're going from the front to the back, just keep that same flow. You don't go selecting the first and then the second, then you go select the second and the first. Make sure you go from the end one to the first one if you started from the end, like so, because in the next step that we're going to do, this is actually going to make sense. So again, I'm actually going to pause the video again while I do the rest of these attaches over here, and I'll be right back. And now if I select all of these guys, you're going to notice that every time I select one of them, it basically selects both lines. All right, that's awesome. But now we still have the issue because it's still just lines and there's nothing else to do with lines. So what I'm going to do is select all of these lines. And now thanks to the fact that we attached all of these lines together to form up that width of the plank, we need a way to give this thing actual geometry. But in order to have geometry, we're going to have quads. And the easiest way to get quads in this set geometry is from the modifier list. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go down to C and look for this modifier, cross section. Now when I click it, what you're going to notice is that all of these edges just got created, but it's still just a spline. Now, in order to get actual geometry for this, I'm going to have to go from the cross section in the modifier list, choose a modifier called surface. Now, the surface modifier is going to look for actual quads and then give them faces. And since with the cross section we just got all of these quads, if I click on the surface, we just got all of these faces here, which is going to allow me to use them as actual geometry because now we have polygons. All right, so here what we can do is, again, if we're going to try to make something like this, we can give this thing actual shell modifier like so and get that width. But like we said, we're going to try and get this to be an actual full on plank. And in order to get that, I'm actually going to hit on edit poly on top of the surface like so. Select all of those borders, and well, once we're here, we can just click on cap and we get all of those edges capped off. Now, since I would probably like to not have all of these very, very sharp edges, with the border select, I'm going to hold on Control and click on Edge. And here, I'm going to click on chamfer. This is going to give me a wonky result because basically this is just one huge angle, and that is not an ideal look for it. So I'm going to deselect this thing, and if I want to have nice chamfers, I'm actually going to have to go the the longer way. That means that I'm select this. First of all, I'm going to flip it because my normals are selected, and I'm going to select just these two guys, hit on inset as such, and click OK. Now, another thing that's worth mentioning here is that by doing this inset, what you're actually doing here is you're allowing or making your life a lot easier if you're going to try and unwrap this. Because unwrapping something that has an angle, so let's try with a 0.2, in the middle can be an actual nightmare doing it. So this way, as you can see, if I take a look at the edges now, I get this nice highlight. And if I try to unwrap this, since the angle is in the middle, it's not touching the edge, I can just put an actual seam at the edges here and get away with it. Again, I can do the same thing here. So select the whole thing. If it's a darker color, hit the flip. So we don't have any problems with flip to normals. There we go. Edge here, chamfer, like we just did with a 0.2, as such, and we just got that looking like that. The same thing again, flip, select here, insert, apply and continue. In this case, we might want to try and fix issues like this. But there we go, just a quick chamfer here, 0.2, done. No more issues, everything is fine. All right, I'm gonna pause this thing here, do the rest, and I'll be back. All right, so I went ahead and did a couple of these guys. As you can see, they are chamfered in the edge, but the rest are actually left as they are because, well, since this is just a tutorial on how you can achieve a look like this, it really makes no sense to go ahead and doing this same thing all over again and losing half an hour. All right, so now that we got to about this point, we need to define how this thing is going to be held together. Now, if we use an actual pipe or some type of a metal rod going from one end to the other, what we can do here is, well, first of all, I want to hide this thing so it's no longer in the way. And on the edge over here, I can simply hold on Control and right click and choose this, not a plane, but a spline or a line, like so. And now click, just drag it where you want to have that pipe passing through. Maybe something to feel about there. All right, that's going to work. Select both of these, hit the smooth as such. Maybe move this to just a tiny bit up and bezier corner till I get something that I like. All right, once I have this, I can just simply give it a width, make it radial as such, move it into position wherever I want it, make sure it kind of connects all of these guys together like that. It's fine on the front, fine on the back as well. I might actually go ahead and move this thing just a tiny bit higher, like so it looks more natural as such. And again, move this thing one more version with a hold down shift, copy one more version there, and there we go. Now we have these two pipes going from the back to the front. You can add in some extra geometry so it looks a bit more fancier, but you get the actual idea about this thing. Other thing would be, just select both of them. If I wanted to have any type of a plank or a wooden piece that would interconnect all of these, then what I can do here from the side, I can simply just go in, add in one plane like so, and then take the time and shape this thing into the shape that I want it to be. So basically just add in a edit poly for this thing however you want it to be. There we go. And now start shaping it down to whatever shape you might fancy or you would like to have the interconnected piece be. Once you need once you have the needed look, simply just slap on a simple shell to give it width, put it in position, and more or less you will be done. But again, like I said, I will not be doing this here. All right, with that done, you're basically gonna have this portion of the work done. So the modeling portion you're gonna have down and finished. So now what you're gonna have to do is add in a texture. Now for texturing, I'm simply gonna use, I'm gonna show you one other trick you can use to get a quick texturing. So I'm gonna open up my material editor. I'm going to choose just a wooden texture. Well, any wooden texture would work. Maybe something like this, or maybe maple or cherry, whatever. It really doesn't matter. So just assign the material to the selection. In the diffuse, just I'm going to go and I'm going to actually try and use this seamless wood texture. All right, put it in the diffuse as such. Click here and click Show Shaded Material in Viewport. Now, right away you're going to notice that I have no texture here, basically because this whole thing hasn't been unwrapped. And unwrapping a model like this can be a pain. Unless it's something very simple like this, in which case we can cheat our behinds off. So just hit a UVW map, put a cylindrical on. Let's try to see it on the, which is the right axis. So right, this is the X, hit on fit and click on cap this thing here. Now what this thing is going to do is going to allow us so we can have the same texture applied on all of these guys, and we can actually see how that texture is going to look. Now the problem with using this approach is that all of these planks are going to have the same texture applied to it, and if your render is going to be very close to the camera, that is going to break the immersion and is going to break the illusion that this is actually a 3D model. So what you would like to do here is select all of these guys and then unwrap them into a single texture. Now, I've actually done this in a previous model that I've worked on, so I'm going to load that one and show you because the approach was exactly the same as we did it here. And here we are with this model. As you can see, this is a bit more different shape than what we had, but in reality the steps on making this shape were exactly the same with the one that we just did. So this is following this organic looking chair, or whatever. It can be a chair or it can be a bench. So we have just this. But now, if you take a look at the actual texture, you're going to notice that this thing is not following the same look. And if you take a look at the geometry, I have the same exact look. We basically have one inset and then a chamfer on the edges. What this did though is, once I select my model, if I put an unwrap UVW on it, you're going to notice that this has been really neatly unwrapped. So all of these now fit into just this 0 to 1 UV space. So I have no amount of overlapping on any of these polygons. Hence, when I apply a texture to this, it's taking the same texture and it's dividing the space on all of these. So if I open up my material here, you're going to notice that I have a sub-object material. So we have an ID 1 and ID 2. The reason for this is that on the edges, this is where you would generally cut the wood. So what I did here is individually go and select all of these guys, like so. Select the edges here, a ring, hold down Control, click on Polygon, and that is going to select that entire ring and simply set the ID to 2. I went ahead and did the same thing to all of these guys. So now all of these edges are using this material, which has this texture on it, as so. And for the ID 1, we have the actual wooden texture, which is like this. And from here, I can control the tiling. I can use the tiling of 1 by 1. And there you go. You see this thing changing. If you want a smaller tile, you can go tiling 2 by 2 like it was. Or if you want to go in a little lower, you can go 5 by 5, something like this. It all depends on what you want to achieve. Just make sure you don't break the immersion by doing something like this. That is why I just chose a simpler look with 2 by 2, where you can actually see all of these things repeating over and over. Right. So with that, you basically now know how you can take just a very simple box like this, give it some edible polys. Like in this case, you can see it's a very wonky looking geometry, but by putting a turbo smooth on top of it, we get this nice looking shape. By doing the step by step that I just showed you, you can get a very interesting end result like this. And with this, you are more or less done. So I hope you guys had fun and you managed to learn something new. If you do have any questions, leave them below. I will meet you in the comment section of the video. If you enjoyed the video, then please click the like button, and if you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do so. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye for now.